So this Shinny guy, he's quite a lively character. I think when I was doing my campaign earlier on, and I was kind of like, well, I was doing the investigation, but I was doing a lot of it got heated, like I got quite passionate about the illegal road signage and various other things. And I would actually do quite a lot of kind of like extremely emotionally strong expression like that Shinny does, right? But then later on, I guess maybe I don't know if I got tired of it or what, but that was on my other channel, right? But this Shinny guy, I mean, he pretty much puts everyone else. He pretty much outdoes everyone. I think, really. I think he sounds like he's a Scouser, but he's definitely from the north. But he's talking about Starmer going on this Loose Women program. Starmer shouldn't be on Loose Women. It's an entertainment program, right? And it's about opinions of average people, right? But all these programs like Jeremy Vine and so forth, what it's being sold as, I think, is wrong. It's been mislabeled, and this is all to do with like having Rees-Mogg on, GB News when he was serving as an MP. It falls within the category and class of when Nigel Farage was on Talking Pints and he's not going to be on there, and then when social media have got all the election campaigns on and they're not removing them after 14 days, and then they're having the links to social media and advertising private platforms on MP's contact pages. Keir Starmer is the worst lawyer in history. He's a charlatan, a criminal. He was a criminal in the Crown Prosecution Service. The police are arresting old ladies illegally and misidentifying them, right? Never mind, gender identification or sexual misidentification or whatever misidentification. The police are arresting people illegally as we speak, right? And the Prime Minister is not meant to be on entertainment programmes at all. He's meant to be the Prime Minister of England, seeing his constituents, maybe doing a few things for government, like going around schools and that lot. He's allowed to get photographed doing that in the national newspaper, right? Seeing schools in his work and job, right? And if the news want to interview him on this or that, that's why he goes on the BBC, and it's specifically about this or that, and it's all under licensing, and they're meant to be actually holding them to account. It's meant to be, the BBC are meant to be asking the government what they're doing to inform the country on what's going on, right? But now that Parliament has got its own channels and that you can see Parliament, and you see we can see what they're doing and we can hear what they're talking about. So we don't need the news to inform us of it, right? Now, what Starmer is doing on Loose Women, if I had the money, if I had money to pay for a lawyer, I would go into the High Court and I would get Starmer prosecuted, right? Because it's illegal. And Starmer, his whole party, the entire Labour Party, they're criminals. They've all broken election law, every single one of them. And the Conservatives and Nigel Farage severely through Talking Pints. And he doesn't care, right? He can't even understand how to interpret the Terrorism Act 2000 or the 2006 or 2008 one. I don't know what they've been putting in the food. I don't know whether it's that taurine that's done it, right? I don't know whether taurine has done it, or whether it's something in Red Bull, whether it's the caffeine. They've put something in the drinks, what everyone's been drinking, and it's completely and totally caused a part of everyone's brain to be diminished and not work properly. So they don't even, they're not there's no self-reflection, and they can't understand things in the big picture, right? And Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has actually said this, right? Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has stated that there's a massive, huge rise in autism, right? But it's not just autism. The whole country's been affected, and they didn't used to be like this. They didn't used to be like this. What's happened is it's happened very quickly and very fast. only since around 2005, because around 2005 we didn't even have all this, right? It's just appeared from nowhere, and they haven't checked the laws properly. They didn't check what they're doing. Nick Clegg was on there with Mark Zuckerberg going, oh, you know, we can't keep up with the legislation. He knew very well they were breaking the law. Keir Starmer is illegally on these programs. It's entertainment. You don't have prime ministers on entertainment programs because it's benefiting his electoral profile and it's familiarising him with the public in more than the capacity of the Prime Minister of England, right? He's socialising with the country and it's trying to make him into a household name more, and it's trying to persuade the public, you know, to like him, and he's got agreeable people on the programme with him, and they're also trying to pitch their opinions, right? Oh, allies. They mention the word allies. So who's allied to the Prime Minister? Labour, right? And is that Labour voters? So is this a pitch for trying to get Labour voters back? They're trying to befriend, get the assistance from, and get a covenant with people who might be allied to Starmer at a time when he's not popular and he's already called the elections off. If this is an election crime happening now, and these women, I don't know whether, you know, if it's the rabbits, maybe it's the rampant rabbits, the dildos that have stuck to the pussies that's doing it. Maybe that's why they've really blocked the porn sites, right? I think that it's got something. I think that the industry knows about it. I think the industry knows because they put something in those volcano burritos at Taco Bell's, right, that definitely does something with the dopamine, right, in your brain. Weird stuff, right, with very, very strange dopamine reactions, right? That picture on those Monster drinks, which are literally everywhere, and they've got every flavour under the sun, right, with the scraping claws down it, the Ripper, right? There's something that the scientists and the owners of those drinks companies have figured out chemically, and they figured out that, I don't know whether it's vitamin B12, like over getting, you know, like 1 minute we're not hardly getting any vitamin B12 because we don't get contact with the earth, and then they're giving us loads of it. There's one of the ingredients in those drinks which everyone's drinking, MPs and everyone, and it's completely and totally ripped away part of the fucking brain and diminished it. And no one has an actual fucking clue, right, about, they've got no intuition. Or they're just so now wrapped up in being a celebrity in themselves and everyone's booing in the comments that they don't care what the truth is. They don't want to look at the truth and they don't want to listen. And when you've got someone who actually knows what's going on and knows what's happening and knows what the truth is, you can't get heard because they've got the platform. They're the ones who are doing the talking and they're actually misleading people. And what the evidence... If you read these parliamentary committee reports, right, the propaganda, you know, you grow up hearing this word propaganda. People say it like, oh, propaganda. You don't really actually know what it means. You think it's like the newspaper just putting some, like, you know, David Beckham story or maybe, you know, some faked incident or like, you know, like 9/11 or something like that. You know, I was at Stonehenge once and I remember we were at Stonehenge dancing and I had a video camera and I was filming Stonehenge, and then this French guy came up to me and he just put his hands in the air and shouted, you know, just because I had a camera and because I was filming, he's like, propaganda. I'm like, no, actually, this is live. This is what's really happening. You know, this isn't propaganda, because if it was propaganda, I'd be making something up about it or trying to mislead about it. This is actually, I'm just filming normally what's actually here, right? So how is that propaganda? But he said the word propaganda just because I had a camera, like, you know, as if like he was saying it in the sense like, oh, like, you know, cameras, photographers, media, press, propaganda, just because it was being documented, right? Rather than us all just being there to experience it ourselves. Kind of a little bit like, you know, when everyone holds a mobile phone up at a gig now and it's just like an ocean of mobile phones, right? Kind of like in that sort of sense of it, right? But now, being an adult who actually has got intelligence and some experience in the world, I am reading these parliamentary committee reports on privilege, right? This is propaganda in the core sense of the word, the original true meaning of the word propaganda. These parliamentary privilege reports are the absolute ultimate propaganda, lying, misleading the public, false representations, getting you to, the power of suggestion, how they want it to be interpreted, or how they want you to interpret it. And then something later on totally contradicts it. And then they've got all these sentences which are useful, right, or true, but then it's all weaved into actually try to subdue, subvert, or play things down, or even lie and make out things aren't what they are by the use of words and language. And then when you look at the actual original source, you can actually, the intelligent person can just pick at it and say, like, you can't possibly be right. Because, this is, by true meaning and logic of words and intuition and intelligence, right? But there's a reason for the propaganda. Now, we need to actually get these politicians off this television because it's completely and totally illegal. Keir Starmer has got no right or interest to minister government on an entertainment programme, right, which is privately funded for the set in the background. It's not paid for by the taxpayer. The BBC was partially funded by the taxpayer, right? But we don't need any MPs to appear on any news programmes or sell, pitch, salesmanship, talk about anything. They talk in the chamber. That's why we elect them. They've got the privilege of speaking in the chamber. It gets put down in Hansard. We don't have to apply for it now because we can watch it and hear it and play it back and watch it again if you want to hear it, right? We know what they're saying and doing by watching it. Watch the channel, right? And we don't need the BBC to tell us what they're doing because we can actually hear it ourselves, right? Now, anything outside of that, right, is Keir Starmer has been elected to go into the House of Commons and have a microphone drop down, speak about the government and politics and vote. And then when they vote, we can watch it back and hear what he's voted on, right? And that's it. That's what he was elected to do, right? And to get there, he had to have a competitive process in a fair competition with equal spending to get voted in to do that, right? But now he's on entertainment programmes, promoting himself, his party, his ideas and politics, and even getting allies, right? Now that is outside of the scope of ministering the government, because it's a privately funded entertainment show, right? And he's not allowed to be on there because all of his job roles, we pay him. We pay for him to get to Parliament and back home again. We pay for him to go to a farm to have a look to see how farms are processing manure. We pay for him to go to a school to have a look round to see what they're doing in schools, to see if they're teaching them properly, and maybe get a few photographs to prove that he went there and he actually did something, right? That's it, right? This is not paid for by us for him to do a job. He's been funded by a private television network show to push his views and policies and get allies on his side. It is illegal. He's not elected to do that. And as for any MPs who aren't ministers, they are providing a surgery to a county. They won't let us talk to the MP if we're not from that county, right? Even if we've got an issue in Richmond or somewhere at the Kew Gardens, National Archives, if you say MP for Richmond, like, you know, the Lib Dem MP, right? That's in that area, but they won't even see us when it's in their area. But if if I'm from Timbuktu and I want to invest money in that Richmond area, then they'll arrange us, full day's freaking interview with them on a private freaking plane to talk about it, according to that led by donkeys thing. So they're actually they're giving an advantage, an illegal advantage, a discriminative advantage to business persons who want to do business, and any other individual person who has got a problem, even if it's in that area, if they're not born from that area, they're giving them a pair of rods and telling them to get lost because it's a very strict protocol, right? So they're lying about the surgery rules and manipulating them. And then there's all this social media toss, which they've rushed into like a hurricane with Nick Clegg, when Nick Clegg himself broke the laws, which is all tied into Ofcom, Lord Hallam of Hallam, and Facebook and the whole thing, which they've rushed at breakneck speed and utterly disregarded intentionally the whole law around elections and fairness, just because it's trendy and it's cool. And there's a massive uprising in individual opinion and individual movements, and Labour and the Tories can't handle that. They can't take it, and they want a piece of the action, but they're doing it illegally, right? Rather than tell everyone else to stop doing it, right? So Starmer should not be on this programme. He's on there illegally, and, you know, it's in fact, now we've got to a situation where they're calling elections off and everyone's trying to influence. Everyone's getting involved in politics, right? These shows shouldn't even be talking about issues that are getting voted on in government. It's meant to be entertainment. Entertainment is supposed to make you laugh, right? Like someone with a hula hoop, right? You know, dancing ladies kicking up the can, right? Or a comedian, right? Maybe, you know, a stand-up comedian like John Bishop or something, like, right? They're actually using entertainment now to get into politics, to affect the voting. This programme is affecting voting. He's talking about allies, right? So all we need, show me the money. All we need is the money, because they blocked us from challenging them in elections because they put a £5,000 deposit in the way, £5,000 deposit. No one can afford it. That's an obstruction. And then if you even try against them, apparently they'll bankrupt you, right, and make you poor, which, you know, parliamentary committees are meant to hear election petitions really for free, right, by petition, because elections ought to be free, right? And there's a massive obstruction to that. They're just blocking us on absolutely everything. And any new technology or power which comes out, they're just dominating it and taking it over, you know? And, you know, who would be interested in these programs? And as for abuse, right, there is absolutely no figure or statistic in this country as high as people who have been abused by the police force, arrested or prosecuted illegally by the police, or abused by courts, justices, or the CPS or court system, right? No matter how many children have been abused sexually, right, I can guarantee you that more adults have been abused by the legal system and suffered a spiritual or lasting damage of their soul or spirit permanently for life, or even local councils doing things to them which have ruined the rest of their life. Like Sadiq Khan, you know, with ridiculous fines which cause distress and anxiety and actually force people to have their vehicle taken off them, which they liked. It was their possession, right? They bought it, right? They might have liked it. But yeah, he's the Mayor of London, he can do what he wants, right? He's a paedophile. The authority gives him the ability to abuse people, just like Savile had the ability to abuse people because he was, you know, Sir Jimmy Savile, right? And this is the whole basis of MPs. Oh, we can dick around with the taxes, you know, we can tweak your nipple, you know, we can make you hurt, right, by lowering or raising taxes, but that's a privilege we've got, right? So, you know, who cares? whether you've been sexually abused or not, or whether you've been financially wrecked and ruined by the government, you can't even afford to live and pay your rent in your house. Some people can't even afford the rent is taken away. It's abuse. But he's got a license. Keir Starmer, license to abuse. What is the obsession with sexual abuse? MPs are abusing people. They're making people homeless, taking the benefits away from them. And then the police are abusing people. They've got batons, kicking doors down. Oh, well, you're accused of a crime, so we've got the right to do it. The whole world is abuse, right? And all Starmer wants to do, and these people, is focus on sexual things, right? You know, there are people who've been sexually abused, right? Yes, we know people who've been sexually abused or abused, right? I can guarantee you, right, no one, right, has suffered as much harm, lasting psychological torture from the police force, right? How dare they, right? How dare they do it? And they're arresting old ladies now for holding a sign up when it's actually a legal process. A legal process. A process in the legal system, right? Which clearly in law is privileged, right? Why don't we prescribe the police? Let's prescribe the police. Oh, we can't do that. They've got legal privilege. They're engaged in legal processes. Does it say that in the 2000 Act? Where? Oh, well, it says it in the 2006 and 8 one, so, well, it must apply to the 2000 one for prescribed groups. You can't prescribe the police. So how can you prescribe old ladies making canvassing representations to the public, right? This is the thing, independently, not actually funded by a private TV entertainment show, right? And when people have got their own independent causes, it's not for elections. Here we've got the Prime Minister who represents the Labour Party, who's not doing very well at the moment, and here we've got loose women trying to up his allies, upping his allies for him, when entertainment shows aren't meant to have anything to do with Parliament. People's independent YouTube channels are their own private affairs and can choose to be political, right? This is privately funded entertainment by big backers with big studios, with big backgrounds and a lot of money involved in it and a big audience, right? And that if Starmer was standing, in a by-election, within memory of this show, you could go straight into the election court and say, look, there's loose women trying to get him some allies on here, right? That's going to affect his votes, right? How can you prove that? Well, go to Holborn St Pancras and ask him how many people saw this show. We could do a survey on that. That'd cost some money. Claim some cost back for that. We'd have to go around and ask everyone and survey them, like blankety blank. How many people watched Keir Starmer, saw the Loose Women show in Holborn Pancras, leading up to the election and, fancied themselves as an ally of Keir Starmer, right? We could count it. Let's go count it. Count it. Get it down on paper, write it down. Let's count it. Let's ask them all. Go around the doors. Let's knock. Let's send some police officers round. How many police officers does it take to go around 70,000 voters in Holborn Pancras to ask them if they saw Keir Starmer Loose Women? 5, 10, 15, 20? How many people saw that show? How many people saw it? I'd be interested to see the figures. Show me the figures. Show me the figures of how many people have seen the programme. Because I can guarantee you, in Clacton-on-Sea, people saw Nigel Farage on Talking Pints. People saw it. People watched it. People in Clacton had been watching Farage on that show. Even while the election was going, you could replay it and watch it, right? When Nigel Farage is standing for election in Clacton-on-Sea, you can go on YouTube for free as an entertainment gift and watch the playback of Talking Pints and get to know Nigel, get to know your candidate in the election, because it's still up there, still on the website, you can play it back. I want to know how many people in Clacton-on-Sea electorate have seen Talking Pints. I want police officers going to every house or telephoning every house out of the fucking Yellow Pages. I want that Yellow Pages book, every phone number telephoned, or a police officer sat there ringing houses up and asking them, did you see Talking Pints and Nigel Farage leading up to the 2024 general election? Did you see it, right? I want to see how many people saw it, right? And if the number of people corresponds to the voting for reform, right? I want the police to do it, because otherwise we're going to have to do it, and we're going to have to pay for it privately. And then there's a £5,000 we've got to pop. Oh, we've run out of time. There's 14 days have expired. This is the thing. So don't worry. Next general election, this Loose Women programme will still be on there, and they'll still be looking for allies for Starmer on there, right?